President Biden opens up key oil reserves.
And the slap heard around the world. What's happening to Will Smith? All that and more in this week's edition of Chapman News. From Dodge College of Film and Media Arts, this is Chapman News.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's edition of Chapman News. I'm Haley Montez.
And I'm Anna Montemore.
We begin this morning with breaking news from Ukraine.
A major mystery: who blew up a fuel depot in Belgorod, Russia, just 20 miles from the Ukrainian border. The Russians claim it was 2 Ukrainian helicopters, but the Ukraine government won't confirm or deny the charges. The facility, which stored millions of gallons of oil, is major staging area for Russian troops, who have been faced with shortages of fuel, food, and water. This is the first attack on Russian soil. And there's other major news in Ukraine. Kiana Favela has the latest.
It's been over 5 weeks since Russia invaded Ukraine, an invasion that has lasted far longer than Putin imagined, but Ukraine is still fighting back. This week, Ukrainian and Russian negotiating teams met in Turkey in attempts to draft a deal. Hours into the peace talk, Ukrainian officials said they were ready to declare their country permanently neutral, which would eliminate their chances of joining NATO, a key Russian demand. Russia claimed they would drastically scale down their military escalations near Kyiv. However, there is no end in sight. Russia still remains determined to capture more eastern Ukrainian territory, and the U.S. and its allies are skeptical of the country scaling down its warfare.
We'll see. I don't read anything into it until I see what their actions are.
So far, the Russian bombardment has continued. Though Russia is hungry for more territory, Ukraine has been able to regain control of some of its cities. Just this week, Ukrainians reported that they pushed back Russian military nearing Kyiv and regained control of their northeastern town, Trostianets. The mayor of Irpin, a key northwestern town in Ukraine, also reported that most control has been regained. Reporting for Chapman News, I'm Kiana Favela.
President Zelensky predicts that 16,000 Russian troops have died in the invasion. The United Nations say over 1,000 Ukrainian civilians have been killed as well.
President Biden is taking a big step aimed at lowering oil prices from the war. He is making available from the U.S. oil reserves a total of 180 million gallons over the next 6 months. That's 1 million gallons a day.
There also may be more good news on gas prices. The organization Gas Buddy, which tracks oil prices, says prices should finally drop here in California in the next few weeks. California has been behind the rest of the nation in lowering prices.
Refugees are still flooding into European countries from Ukraine. The UN estimates that there are 4 million, you heard that right, 4 million refugees who have left their homeland. They are getting help from all over the world, providing the basic necessities like food and clothing. One pressing need is supplies for mothers and their newborn babies. Some of that support is coming from right here in Orange County. We have the story of a young woman who is rallying her friends and neighbors.
I am originally from Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine. They're bombing civilians, hospitals, schools. The way our morning starts, it doesn't start with coffee and breakfast. We call our relatives, our friends, and ask if they're alive. Same during the day and in the evening. So this is my husband's city. It was like almost completely destroyed as well. And a lot of moms, they lost their milk supply because of the stress. And kids just starving right now. Women, they didn't stop having kids, giving birth to kids during the war. It doesn't work like that. The first 2 days, we were crying like non-stop. I thought that it doesn't help Ukrainians if we focus on the things and events we cannot change. Maybe we should do something we can do. So there is a big Facebook group Ukrainian moms, and I asked them what do they need specifically. And there were so many comments. Those women, they were just begging, they were screaming for help. They were asking for food for their babies. I just decided to help somehow, to collect donations. We are gathering mainly vital stuff for the babies, and then we try to ship it as soon as possible to Ukraine. Now we already shipped 1,700 pounds of formula and medicines. It's the events like this that show the real picture of what kind of community you live in. My volunteers, they were like here just the second I opened the door, and they were willing to help. We will continue helping, continue supporting. I just want people to know that we are with you. Please be strong. This war, it must end soon, and the life continues. Just please stay alive, and I hope you're safe.
If you want to be a helping hand for this organization, please donate the following: powdered baby formula, which is unopened and has an expiration date no earlier than May 2022, and baby fever reducers, painkillers, gas drops, and diaper rash cream. Donations are accepted at 17910 Sky Park Circle in Suite 104 in Irvine. They can be sent in an Amazon shipment or in person.
NASA astronaut Mark Von Hay has broken the record for the longest single space trip. He returned home on Wednesday aboard a Russian spacecraft despite rising tensions here on Earth. Hay spent 355 days in space, breaking the previous record of 340 days, the majority of time spent aboard the International Space Station. He arrived to Earth joined by 2 Russian cosmonauts. This surprised people after the chief of the Russian Space Agency went on Twitter to criticize American involvement in Russian affairs following the invasion of Ukraine, going as far to say that he will abandon Hay in space. NASA has committed to working with Russian Space Agency Roscosmos despite the ongoing invasion. We congratulate Hay on his record, and we wish him a warm welcome.
There's plenty of political news back here, with some suggestion that former President Donald Trump is closer to facing criminal charges.
Kiana Favela is here this week in politics. Kiana?
Thanks, Anna. The January 6th House Committee has been investigating Donald Trump's involvement in the Capitol insurrection for months, but new information was just revealed in the last week. Claire Weber has more on the committee's latest findings.
The January 6th House Committee is currently investigating a 7.5-hour gap in Donald Trump's phone logs from the day of the Capitol insurrection. Documents obtained by the Washington Post show Trump had a phone call with an unidentified person around 11 a.m. on January 6th. His next call wasn't until almost 7 p.m., after hours of no other calls. Bob Woodward revealed the news of the committee's phone log investigation this week, an echo of history to Woodward's role in breaking the story of Watergate and past President Nixon's involvement in the scandal.
He is a telephone addict, and the idea that nothing happened in the afternoon on the phone January 6th is as unlikely as the sun not rising.
Right. Woodward is currently working alongside Robert Costa, the co-author of his book Peril, written about the end of the Trump presidency. This investigation comes after a California federal judge ruled that Trump and his lawyer John Eastman had, quote, more likely than not committed felonies during their attempts to overturn the 2020 election results, including obstruction of Congress's work and conspiracy to defraud the nation. The judge's remarks came during Eastman's civil case and may push the court to make a criminal referral to the Justice Department. The House Committee will also be seeking an interview with Virginia Thomas, Justice Clarence Thomas's wife, after text messages between Thomas and former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows were released. The text messages show Thomas urging Meadows to pursue plans to overturn the 2020 election results. The messages raised many questions regarding a conflict of interest for Clarence Thomas's work on previous cases, and many Democrats say he should recuse himself from any cases involving election fraud.
The information we know right now raises serious questions about how close Justice Thomas and his wife were to the planning and execution of the insurrection.
Despite this, Clarence Thomas remains supported by top House and Senate Republicans. Reporting for Chapman News, this is Claire Weber.
It is still unsure if Meadows will rescue himself. And Florida's Don't Say Gay bill has made its way to the front of the nation's culture wars. Governor Ron DeSantis officially signed the bill into law Monday. The bill forbids instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through third grade classrooms. DeSantis' decision comes after waves of disapproval from Florida students, public and political figures, and major companies. Justice Patricia Guerrero was sworn into the California Supreme Court Monday, making her the first Latina to join the court. Guerrero has previously served as a Superior Court judge and on the 4th District Court of Appeals. It's a significant move in a state where nearly 40% of residents identify as Hispanic or Latino. And a former Orange County Sheriff's Reserve captain has paid back over $5 million in restitution for workers' compensation fraud. The former sheriff is accused of stealing $17 million from the state, making it the largest insurance scheme ever prosecuted in Orange County and the second largest in the state. He's expected to pay an additional $8.5 million when he faces his sentencing in May. That's your political update for the week. I'm Kiana Favela. Back to you, Anna.
In a shocking moment at Sunday's Academy Awards, actor Will Smith walked on stage to slap comedian Chris Rock over a joke Rock made about Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. It was probably the most exciting event at a rather dull 3-hour televised event, but it's causing political bombshells for Smith and the Oscars itself. Luca Evans is here with more.
They said, we will go get him. We are prepared. We're prepared to get him right now. You can press charges. We can arrest him. They were laying out the options. And as they were talking, he was being very dismissive.
That's the latest from Academy Awards producer Will Packer saying the Academy and law enforcement was ready to come after actor Will Smith after a slap at Sunday's Oscars that, well, rocked the world.
Oh, wow! Wow!
A moment frozen in time forever. During Sunday's 94th Academy Awards, legendary actor Will Smith took the stage to slap Chris Rock after the comedian seemingly was making fun of Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett's alopecia, a hair loss condition. He told Rock to
keep my wife's name out your
mouth, to leave out a cute choice word. Leah Aldridge, a film studies professor at Chapman University, felt the moment was heartbreaking.
I felt bad for Chris Rock because he is on the largest and, dare I say, whitest stage in the world.
In an ironic turn of events, Smith won the award for Best Actor later that night and shared a tearful apology on stage.
Denzel said to me a few minutes ago, he said, at your highest moment, be careful, that's when the devil comes for you.
The moment catapulted the Oscars back into the heart of pop culture. Celebrities from Nicki Minaj to Zoe Kravitz to Smith's son Jaden chimed in on social media, which was ablaze with comments supporting Smith and blasting him.
To go up on stage and slap Chris Rock like that, he's lucky he didn't get his ass kicked.
But in the worst case scenario for the Academy, all the fuss didn't translate into booming ratings. Sure, viewership was up 56% from last year, but the show was still the second least watched ever. Dean of Dodge College Stephen Galloway said it might be time for the Oscars to move off TV and onto streaming services.
The fundamental problem with the Oscars is that film is in decline. The greatest art form of the 20th century is not the greatest art form of the 21st.
And Smith may have walked away with a trophy on Sunday, but he could face a world of hurt much more painful than the slap he dealt Rock. The Academy said that Smith was asked to leave the ceremony after the incident, and the actor refused. They've opened an investigation into his conduct, which could lead to damaging consequences.
If they only throw out a token punishment, they will look very bad. They have to, I think, expel him.
Smith apologized to Rock on Instagram, saying, "I was out of line." Aldridge has done extensive scholarly research on Smith's cultural impact, and she thought his reputation would recover. What she's worried about, however, is the racial effects of the incident on Hollywood at large.
He has been historically known as the safe black guy to go to as far as the industry is concerned. I do wonder if it will have a negative impact on Black talent.
The Academy is set for another board meeting April 18 to discuss consequences. In any case, the event may not go down as, in the words of Chris Rock post-slap,
greatest night in the history of television. Okay.
For Chapman News, I'm Luca Evans.
So, Luca, TMZ is reporting that they didn't actually ask Will Smith to leave, despite the claims that they did. Who's telling the truth here?
Yeah, guys, there's a lot of conflicting reports coming out about what exactly went down, but let's break it down a little bit. The TMZ report is pretty confusing, as with most things TMZ. They report that some members of the Academy wanted him gone and others didn't. But here's what we know for sure. Producer Will Packer said in an interview with Good Morning America that the Academy and law enforcement were ready to remove Will Smith and potentially levy charges of assault. However, Chris Rock told Packer he didn't want that, and Packer told the Academy to let Smith stay. It's a whole lot of he said, she said, or in this case, he said, he said.
And what penalties could Will Smith face? Could they take his Oscar away?
Well, it's certainly possible, as Stephen Galloway said, that he could be suspended, expelled from the Academy. But it would be unprecedented if the Academy took an actor's Oscar away. That's never happened before in history, only with a film. And consider some of the names that still remain technically in possession of their Oscars: Kevin Spacey, Roman Polanski, Harvey Weinstein. The Academy is in a difficult position. Too light a punishment and its integrity will be called into question. Too severe, and they look pretty racist.
Well, I'm still really over watching that go down live. We'll have more news after the break.
Another COVID booster? Is shot number 4 right for you? We'll have the answers when we come back.
Wondering what the local weather is to what the weather in Ukraine is? We'll have more and that after the break.
I'll be seeing you in all of our favorite places with laughter and warm embraces all day through.
I love you too.
With free COVID-19 vaccines, sunnier days are ahead. Visit getvaccineanswers.org.
I'll be seeing you.
There's a new COVID update just this morning. Caroline, can you tell us more?
Yes, hospitalizations are at a record low in the U.S., with only 16,000 as of today, and deaths dropped 21% in the past week. But that's not the only COVID update. The FDA approved a second booster for anyone above 50 and immunocompromised individuals. I spoke to infectious disease expert Jerica Lamb about the future of boosters.
So now we ask ourselves, what about the second booster shot or the fourth shot? That's going to be a tricky question because we don't know if the masses will come to receive the booster shot.
The surge of cases of a new Omicron subvariant called BA.2 is rising in Europe. 12 countries have twice as many new COVID cases this week. Jerica Lamb also spoke about BA.2 spreading internationally.
Those countries can be reservoirs for new variants to actually emerge.
The U.S.-Mexico border could see a surge of migrants soon. The Biden administration plans to lift a pandemic-era policy that was put in place to restrict migrants from crossing the U.S.-Mexico border during a public health emergency. The Biden administration will now give 2,700 COVID vaccines a day to migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. Here in California, Governor Newsom's smarter plan takes action. More than 14.3 million tests have been distributed to schools this past month as students and staff come back from spring break. More masks have also been given to schools. That's all for your COVID report. Back to you, Haley.
Astronomers discovered the farthest star ever seen this week. The light of the star is so far away it has taken 12.9 billion years to reach Earth. The Hubble Space Telescope has detected that the light from the star ranges all the way back to the start of the Earth's existence, beating out the former oldest star seen after only 9.4 billion years. The team of astronomers named the star Arundel, which means morning star in Old English. Anna, is it just me, or has it been really chilly recently?
I mean, I'm from Washington, so this is nothing. But I am curious on when are we going to see some sun again?
Well, that's why we have Colin Gaja in the Weather Center with the latest. Colin?
Thank you, ladies. With 6 dead and more than 2 dozen people injured, a snow squall on Monday caused a pileup and a fire on the I-81 in Pennsylvania. Rescuers and authorities have since cleared the highway on Wednesday and opened the roads for vehicles. This is the second pileup due to a snow squall since February on the I-81. And as Ukrainians attempt to seek shelter and flee Russian attacks, they are also enduring winter conditions. In the last 3 months, Ukraine has experienced some of the coldest temperatures to date, the coldest reaching 9 degrees Fahrenheit. While it's warmer as we move into spring, snow and rain in recent weeks hinder military and refugee movements as mud and unstable ground makes it harder to navigate the terrain. And now onto the weekly forecast. You can see that it is a nice 68 degrees, partially cloudy today. And you can see that in our national forecast today, along the west coast here, you can see that it's within the 50 to 60 range, with 51 being Seattle and 63 being San Francisco. Down here by Vegas, you can see that the temperature is a nice 74. Right here by Denver, it's a cool 52. And down here by Austin, it's a nice 78 actually. Out here by the Great Lakes, you can see that it's a nice 40 degrees temperatures all around, from 44 to Minneapolis and 40 in Chicago. Down here by Florida, you can see that it's a warm, humid 82 degrees, and by Atlanta, it's cooler, being 62. And by the East Coast, here you can see that temperatures are just within the 56 to 54 range, being 56 in New York and 54 in DC. And on to our Orange County forecast, you can see that here in North Orange, weather is around 64 to 68, And right here by Newport, let me move to this side actually. Right here by Newport, you can see that temperatures range from 60 to 63, all the way down to Laguna Beach. Inland towards Irvine and Mission Viejo, it's around 67 to 63. 63, sorry about that. And right here by San Clemente, it is 61. On to your weekly forecast, ladies and gentlemen. You can see that temperatures are steadily rising from the low 70s and 60s from Friday until the weekend, and the highest being 92 on Thursdays. You can see that there will be clouds throughout the week from Friday to Monday, and it will be sunny from Tuesdays to Thursdays. And that was your weekly weather forecast. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
In-depth look into a potential cemetery being placed in orange and the backlash around it after the break.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.
Amazon workers in Staten Island have unionized. This is a historical landmark for organized labor workers and the first time it has happened in an Amazon facility. With this vote, workers will disrupt the current labor model of Amazon and its prime two-day shipping. And the sports world is going crazy over March Madness. Haley, did you make a March Madness bracket?
No, but I wish I did. With more on March Madness and sports is Ryan Deeb.
Welcome back to the Best Campus Sports Show. I'm Ryan Deeb. And as an action-packed March comes to a close, the best is yet to come in the sports world as March Madness semifinals take place this weekend with the last 4 remaining teams. Though the tournament has had its upsets, the remaining 4 teams represent some of the best that college basketball has to offer.
To Keels with the 3. Knocks it down at the buzzer.
2 minutes to go in this first half.
Look at this.
Baycott in for the big finish.
Pulling one tire after another. Brown Justin Moore, shot fake. Justin Moore, got it. That's a three-pointer.
Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Villanova have all had their fair share of glory during March, but this year's championship would not only be a huge statement for the teams, but for the coaches as well. Regardless of the outcome, Duke head coach Shujevsky, announced that we will be retiring from the tournament, leaving his titles as an NCAA most successful coach up for grabs. Bill Self and Jay Wright, coaches of Kansas and Villanova respectively, are frontrunners to become the division's best coaches, but Self expresses that the team's legacy as a whole is his main focus.
I've given thought about what a second championship would mean in our tenure here, but I haven't really thought much about it from a legacy standpoint. You know, I don't know about my legacy, but for the program and the historic nature of it, I think that it certainly would add something very significant to it.
Though the Final Four is packed with Blue Bloods of Division I, some of the tournament's best moments came from the 15th seed St. Peter's. St. Peter's University is home to just under 3,000 students, but that didn't stop them from challenging some of the tournament's best. The St. Peter's Peacocks pulled off the upset of the tournament by beating the University of Kentucky, but they didn't stop there. St. Peter's continued their run all the way to the Elite Eight after beating both Murray State and Purdue. They are the first 15th seed in team history to ever make it that far in the tournament.
I got guys that just play basketball. I got a bunch of guys that just play basketball and have fun. That's all we do.
That's just to prove to you that no matter what you do during the regular season, when it comes to the end of the season and making the playoffs, you can do anything you wish for.
Now, the basketball community has had their excitement with March Madness, but for soccer people like me, the biggest tournament is yet to come. That's right, I'm talking about the World Cup. As this morning's official draw for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar has taken place, some big names are missing from the draw. However, with Egypt, Colombia, Chile, Sweden, and even my own Italian national team failing to qualify after this week's latest qualifying rounds. On the bright side, after becoming a laughingstock of an organization when failing to qualify in 2018, the United States men's national team has punched their ticket to the World Cup this time. The United States will be going to the tournament with a new, younger team.
I think sometimes, we slipped up tonight, but sometimes we have to realize that we're still learning. We're all still young, and things like this can happen. But at the end of the day, we put ourselves in the position to be able to qualify. And I'm speechless. I'm happy.
This morning's draw saw the U.S. placed with England, Iran, and either Wales, Scotland, or Ukraine for the group stage. With all this big news in sports, we can't forget about what's happening here on campus. The Colorado Buffaloes step into the jungle against our men's lacrosse team at 7 p.m. tonight, and you can catch all the action on our very own Chapman Sports Broadcasting Network. The Panthers have a 4-4 record on the season and look to extend their winning streak after a narrow victory over ASU, winning 10-9, and a dominant performance over Boise State, coming out on top 15-5. That's all we have on the world's best campus sports show. I'm Ryan Deeb. Back to you at the desk.
A man has been convicted of sexually assaulting an 18-year-old Chapman student. Delonte Jerome Bell was charged and convicted of 2 felonies. Last September, the student was on the phone in the courtyard outside Henley Hall. The student says Bell punched her in the face and pushed her down before sexually assaulting her.
And over 48,000 grocery workers have voted to authorize a strike against big supermarket chains in California after contracts expired earlier this month. Employees are demanding higher wages and better working conditions.
Workers will be closer to a strike if no agreement is met. The union resumed negotiations with Ralph's, Vons, and Albertsons on Wednesday.
Thanks, Haley. Some residents here in the city of Orange are fighting a proposal to build an Islamic cemetery on a landfill near their homes. Neighbor Sylvia St. Nicholas is fighting to keep a cemetery out of her neighborhood.
If you care about the dog park and surrounding communities, and you're not too savvy on having a raw body cemetery in a residence there, that's going to create a lot of traffic, a lot of construction debris, and problems for all of the surrounding businesses right in that area, that they need to speak out and let the council and let the city of Orange know that this is not a good idea for the city of Orange or its residents.
Right behind this fence is where the Islamic cemetery would be. For Muslim people, the body needs to be buried within 24 to 48 hours after the person passes away. Muslims do what's called a green burial, so there's no casket and no embalming. The body is just laid in the grave and covered with dirt. The spokesperson representing the Orange-based developer, Matthew Cunningham, says there is a pressing need for more space for Islamic burials in Orange County.
For Muslims who wanted to do an Islamic burial, they're having to go out as far as Palmdale to do it.
Pressing need or not, the president of the Green Burial Council, Ed Bixby, questions the location of the site.
Really would only be a 2 or 3 foot soil area separating the body from the actual whatever may be beneath the soil. If I was to bury my loved one there, it's just the idea that, wow, it's kind of strange, there's garbage underneath where they're being buried. Not to say that the end result, this remediation isn't a good thing, but it's still kind of hard, to swallow.
The questions are not only about the future of the site, but about its past. From 1946 to 1956, the land at East Palmyra Avenue and South Yorba Street was a landfill operated by the County of Orange. According to a 2010 investigation by Keller Cycles, high concentrations of methane gas were detected at the site. Even though Orange County health officials are saying the landowners are monitoring the methane, the residents are frustrated with the lack of communication between government agencies about ongoing risks.
The water people aren't talking to the health people. The health people aren't talking to the land management people. And there's a lack of communication in the government.
But the landfill itself is not the only concern. The developer plans on building a prayer hall in an old YMCA building on the site. But due to 3 fires last year, the building became unusable. Orange resident Sharon Galasso lives near the site. She says the site has not been cleaned up since the recent fires.
Nothing is getting done. The debris has not been hauled off. Maybe they're waiting for plans to be able to do that. But in the meantime, kids are jumping the fence and jumping and playing in the debris, and it's all unsafe.
But even with these issues, the proposal still faces an uphill battle. This is a letter from the local enforcement agency denying the proposal because they say the site needs additional work. This includes additional cleanup and maintenance, including settlement, drainage, and erosion control. The developer is working with the local enforcement agency to work through those issues. Cunningham also says he understands the community's concerns.
When we're planning a more robust public outreach to the area, once these issues are resolved and we have the environmental impact statement complete so that we make sure we have answers for everyone's questions. But I think at the end of the day, they'll find that their concerns will not be warranted.
But neighbors say this controversial proposal has led to some scary threats after they publicly opposed the cemetery in a magazine.
One of our neighbors was sent the article to his house, was cut out with no return address in the mail, and his head was circled, his line drawn down to his name, and it said, "We know where you live."
Many of the residents, like Bernie Galasso, believe this note was a personal attack on them and their opposing views. The controversial proposal is still in its early stages, and at some point, the community will be able to give feedback through a review process. But they're not at that point yet. Now back to you, Haley.
Residents of Orange, have you ever wondered if the oranges in your neighbor's backyard ever get eaten? We'll tell you about Grow and Share OC, a nonprofit here to help after the break.
The black truck? Hey, Christina from accounting.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, I used to date a girl named Christina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then she dumped me for my best friend. You want to see some photos of them that I took?
I don't.
I thought we talked about this, buddy. Buzz and overshared again? Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna call a car.
That's a smart idea.
So, yeah, I know, that's why I did it.
Hey, you're gonna get back to the top of the mountain.
Does that mean I'm gonna get back with Christina?
No.
Oh.
No.
Get those cups and biscuits ready because it's time for Spilling the Tea with Sophie. And folks, it's piping hot this week. Let's start with one of the wildest Oscars celebrations of all time. We've all heard about the slap millions of times by now, and I mean, come on people, let's focus on something actually important from the Oscars. Never before seen representation. Audiences experienced a variety of artists win awards and represent communities across the boards. Ariana DeBose made history as the first Afro-Latina queer woman to win an Oscar. DeBose won for her performance in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story as Anita. In her speech, DeBose encouraged audiences by saying,
So to anybody who has ever questioned your identity, ever, or you find yourself living in the gray spaces, I promise you this, there is indeed a place for us. Thank you to the Academy, and thank you all.
What's more, Troy Kotsur of Coda made history as the first deaf male actor to win an Oscar. Kutsur's win was dedicated to the deaf community and disabled community. As he gave his acceptance speech in American Sign Language, he said, "This is our moment." Both wins were powerful and inspiring. Doesn't it kind of seem like people haven't seen most of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture? Well, Chapman students, here's your chance. Our Dodge College is hosting a screening of Guillermo del Toro's award-nominated film Nightmare Alley this Saturday at 6 p.m. But that's not all. Legendary director Guillermo del Toro will be in attendance for the screening and a Q&A with Dean Stephen Galloway. Sure doesn't sound like a nightmare of an evening to me. Over in the superhero world, Marvel's new show Moon Knight just premiered on Disney Plus on Wednesday. It stars the daddylicious Oscar Isaac as a man with dissociative identity disorder who becomes a conduit for an Egyptian moon god. Confused? Me too. But it sounds a whole lot better than going to watch Morbius. The long-delayed Marvel and Sony movie starring Jared Leto finally hit theaters today, but yikes, it has a 19% critic approval score on Rotten Tomatoes. I'd stay away from anything Jared Leto touches right now if I were you. After acting in a whopping 144 movies, a Hollywood legend is stepping out of the spotlight. Rumor Willis, the daughter of die-hard actor Bruce Willis, announced on Instagram that her father is suffering from aphasia and will be stepping away from acting. Aphasia is a language disorder commonly caused by a stroke, head injury, or disease that affects a person's ability to communicate. Amy Kaufman, a writer for the LA Times, tweeted, "For at least 4 years, Bruce has grappled with his loss of mental acuity on set. He was fed lines through an earpiece, asked crew where he was, and Lala Kent said he accidentally fired a prop gun in her direction." Willis's daughter wrote, "As Bruce always says, live it up, and together we plan to do just that." Finally, legendary rock band Foo Fighters has announced that they have canceled their upcoming tour dates after the death of drummer and Laguna Beach native Taylor Hawkins. Hawkins died at 50 in Bogota, Colombia last Friday. A cause of death has not been released, but toxicology report from the Columbia District Attorney's Office found opioids and antidepressants in his body. A sad few days for fans as Hawkins was in the band for 25 years, helping fight the Foo all the way back to 12 Grammy Awards. Now that we're all caught up in the movie biz, back to you at the desk.
Crunchy or smooth? Well, Skippy Foods is recalling approximately 60,000 jars of peanut butter due to concerns over stainless steel contamination. Smooth might not be an option. Over 160,000 pounds of the brand's reduced fat and plant protein peanut butter have been recalled so far. The company says jars with expiration dates in May of 2023 may have been contaminated by machine parts. Check your stash at home, just in case.
In case you haven't noticed, Orange County is home to tons of fresh produce, most of which is homegrown.
If you grow your own produce and are looking for something to do with your extra fruit, Claire Weber has met with the perfect organization for you this week.
Beth Huber is a born and raised Orange native who came up with her nonprofit vision when she noticed how much of her own homegrown produce was going to waste.
I have an orange tree in my backyard and it's gigantic, and every year I watch about half the fruit fall to the ground and go to waste.
Her vision turned into Grow and Share, a local nonprofit that collects produce from people's trees and gardens in Orange County, then donates it to food kitchens and distribution centers. Dorinda Von Tersch has been donating her excess produce since the very beginning of Grow and Share's start.
It's just fabulous to know that I can help out and give the fruit to someone who's going to be able to use it, because I just can't eat it fast enough.
Grow and Share donates a large majority of their fresh produce to Mary's Kitchen, a social services organization right here in Orange that provides meals, showers, clothing, and other resources to the less fortunate.
One of our goals was to keep everything as local as possible. We do most of our picks in the city of Orange, in the city of Santa Ana, and also in the city of Anaheim Hills area. And Mary's Kitchen is an organization that's been around for a really long time.
Beth explained that their group is taking things day by day in hopes of eventually achieving their bigger goals.
You know, I've thought a lot about, creating something bigger and better and more, like a food pantry, or just, how big can we really build this out? But this next 6 months is just our time to really understand what that looks like and what the opportunity is.
Grow and Share has turned to social media and other online platforms to continue getting their name out to more Orange County residents. This is Claire Weber for Chapman News.
For more information on Grow and Share and ways to get involved, visit growandshareoc.org. You can help volunteer by collecting produce, pass out informative flyers in the community, or register your own produce for donation.
And as they say, no fresh produce should go to waste.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to check out our YouTube page at chapmannews.tv and make sure to follow us at Chapman News. I'm Haley Montez.
And I'm Anna Montemore, and we will see you next week for another episode of Chapman News.